So Mickey Mouse is usually observed on products face on. So we'll just say that these are his front facial features, and his ears typically go like that. And that's like a very iconic thing.
Yeah.
When his face is turned, so he's not looking directly at camera, say he's looking off camera, in this case, stage left, you would assume that his ears would also follow
The angle, yeah.
the angle, but they never ever do. You never ever see him like that. And if he was turned all the way like this, so where he's literally like looking off on the stage left, you never see his ears like that.
Yeah.
This doesn't happen.
Yeah.
That's because this brand is Mickey. Like, he is the Disney brand.
Mhm.
So no matter how he turns, those ears always stay in brand, you know?
Yeah. That's their brand guideline every time.
Yeah. The idea that when I draw Tot, there's certain rules to the character. His glasses always maintain this shape. There's never a time where I draw Tot's glasses any other way. So I'll show you what the side profile looks like. So here we have Tot's side profile. His glasses should look like that from the side. You shouldn't ever be able to see his eye if it's turned that way and you see the glasses. But I always draw it this way because I want kids who are reading the book to always be engaged with Tot. Like, his eyes always, you can always see his eye and his facial expression very clearly. His facial expression here is kind of obscured. Like, you can see him smiling, but you don't really know what he's thinking because you can't see his eyes. He could be thinking anything. Like, he could be really focused or really afraid. But here you kind of see him at least sort of engaged, and it shows kids that, like, that's the Tot face that I remember. So the glasses never, ever really take any other shape besides this. This is always the shape that they take. It's sort of this, it looks like a jar. So if I was ever to make like a how-to guide for Tot, the jars are always sort of his glasses.
Like the ears of Mickey.
Yeah, like the ears of Mickey for sure. He always has a cleft lip because he's an animal. And every character in the Tot universe that's a mammal, their mouth usually looks like that. Now, there are exceptions. So Phoebe's a horse, and horses don't have a cleft lip. So her smile and face is just sort of like that. It's just a regular smile. But for dogs, cats, mice, anything that sort of has that feature to it, change it up. When you're looking at his tuft of hair straight on, it kind of looks very rooster-like. Very similar to Mickey. I try and draw him like head on as little as possible, just because I don't like the way that this looks when it's like straight on looking at somebody. So I always try and tilt him a little bit so that you can see this silhouette where it's just like these three big tufts of hair.
And it's like more like a faux hawk than a rooster. Got it.
Yeah, I feel like he looks a little messy here.
Okay.
Like, it's kind of like almost like his hair's being blown by the wind, or he has like a hairpiece.
Right.
I feel like here it's bigger, and it's just something that kids could easily draw. That's another thing. You always want your children's book character or a character that's directed for children to be easy for them to draw. Kids are going to look at this, and hopefully the first thing they do is just 1, 2, 3.
Right.
And then they're already on their way to drawing Tot, as opposed to being like, how do I draw this complex shape of like.
So you
That's a little different.
Obviously big DBZ fans.
Mm-hmm.
How quickly can you draw Tot?
You want me to draw a Tot like as quickly as I can?
Should we do a race? Yeah.
There we go.
Wow. You're burning through this.
I'm trying.
Man, even the details on the shoes. Pearl in a minute 40.
Yeah, that's Tot. I mean, he's rough though. That's the thing. Tot and Pip have the same hair. They have those same 3 spikes.
Yep.
It's just that Tots go up and Pips go to the side.
No, dude, actually, I don't think you did mention that.
Okay, yeah,
That's awesome.
That's how I kind of wanted to make them
like have that similarity.
Visually similar, yeah. So you can so kids go like, oh, that's Tot and Pip,
Ooh,
and not just like these 2 like completely random characters.
Yeah.
But yeah, so her head design's a little more complex because Tot's eyebrows will never be interrupted by his hair.
Okay.
His ear will be interrupted. Like you can't see the ear here, but his hair will always remain the same. With Pip, it's different. She doesn't have glasses. So her eyes are sort of framed by her eyelashes to let children know that she's supposed to be a feminine character. Another trait of traditionally feminine characters is that they have a lot of hair, but she also has this really big, sort of substantial hair that's actually like more notable and wild than Tots. You always, when you're drawing her, you have to think pineapple. She's supposed to look like
that's the shape to me for sure.
Yeah. And so when I talked about interruption, her hair actually does interrupt her eyebrows. So you'll see like a glimpse of her eyebrow, but you won't see it as clearly as you see Tots. So what does that do? That just is supposed to emphasize the hair in her face and make her look more feminine. The drawback is that sometimes it might not make her expressions as clear. But, you know, I think there's moments where I tilt her head to the side and kind of bring her hair up a little bit where we can see the eyebrows clear. For the most part, let me shrink her nose. She has a very small nose. Most of the characters do, but I try and really make her nose small. And I try and make her eye line just like a little darker sometimes to sort of give that, not mascara look, but emphasize the eyelashes. Yeah. And what's up?
If you were a character, what would your animal be?
My animal?
Yeah.
Shiba Inu. That's a Japanese fox dog. I really just like the way that the expression on that animal's face just seems so friendly.
Yep.
I like
it. Swept up in the crypto way too.
Yeah, with Doge, yeah. But I like the black one. It looks kind of like a husky, but it has sort of like white eyebrows.
Yeah, they have really cute faces.
They're so cute, man. That's like my dream dog.
Yeah.
So the rest of Pip's anatomy, her outfit's way easier to draw. Because with Tot, I always have to remember like he has the watch on one hand and then he's got the beads on the other hand. But Pip is really easy. She just kind of has this gown, and then she has the super easiest shoes of all time, which are just shiny and red. When I originally drew her, I drew her with her arms behind her back. Like I said, because I wanted to make her look more shy.
Right. It's the anxiety.
Because I didn't even know that at the time, but yeah, I guess so. She just seemed sort of shy to me.
Yeah.
But if I could go back, I would have put these around her wrists, like kind of maybe like one more feminine accessory, like sort of like a bracelet. Because I don't usually have the references in front of me. I kind of know how to draw at least these 2 by memory.
For sure.
But yeah, I do think that these look pretty cool. Maybe not as big as I drew them here. Maybe, let's grab it. Maybe something like that would look a little bit better.
Sweet, man.
Yeah, and these would also be red because Tot is very blue. So together, you know,
very complimentary.
Yeah, they make purple and they're that complementary sort of idea. The thing about Tot is, at least when I draw him or how I read him in Zach's script, is that he's a character that's very guided by imagination, which was sort of how I was as a kid. And so as down to earth as he is and as likable as he is, he's always thinking about something or trying to imagine something. And the way that you do that with cartooning is that you give your character's eyes a direction. So, for example, he's looking up and out. He's trying to imagine something that he can't see. That's why his eyes are looking the way they are in this drawing. If you draw a character this way, where their eyes are just sort of defaulted, he sort of looks very fish-like. You know, he's just kind of looking at you or not anywhere. It almost looks like he's zoning out. And so when you do that to your characters, you make them look a little dead inside. Like he looks like, you know, he looks like the doll. Not that the doll looks bad, but the doll is supposed to look like a doll.
Right.
He's supposed to look alive. So when you give the character an eye direction, you give them a thought. And as a viewer, you go, oh, I can relate to that thought. With the stars around him and him kind of looking up to the left, he's thinking about something. Now she's looking to the right. I don't know why I did that. Typically, whenever I draw her, she's looking at Tot, or Tot is looking at her. In pretty much every illustration that they're together, one of these two things is going on. Usually they're not looking in different directions, but there are exceptions. In the second book, Tot is explaining what he wants to do with the treehouse, and they're both looking up at his dream bubble that he's explaining. And I wanted it to be, well, Tot's looking up at his dream bubble with confidence because he can see what he's creating. But Pip is looking up with anxiety because there's anxiety in her ear. I don't ever think I revealed this to you guys, but if you look in the illustrations of Tot and Pip, whenever Pip is by herself, I never add blush to her face. She just has flat color here and just these little cheek lines that I add to every single character. But every single time these two characters are together, I add blush to their face.
It's an adorable ad.
It's only when they're together. So when they're not on screen together, that doesn't happen. Now, this book isn't a good example because they're
true in real life, Andrew.
That's cool. So Tot, it's the same rule. So no blush here because he's by himself. There's blush here because he's next to Pip. No blush here because he's with the teacher. No blush here. No blush. No blush. And then she's about to re-enter after the superhero scene. No blush. And then the blush is back.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
Yeah. I always wanted that to be sort of like a thing because when you go back and read these and you really think about the story and universe as a whole, there should always be little details that people catch subliminally where they go, oh, well, the person who made this put a lot of thought into it. And yeah, even in the story where he's just imagining Pip, he's blushing. Eve is very synonymous with the apple. It's supposed to be like a feminine sort of motif.
I think I'm gonna get a Pip outfit. You're gonna find my
All red
shiny shoes. And same with you. We gotta get you.
I gotta get those purple shoes.
If we can custom make those purple shoes, that'd be crazy. If you ever look at kids' shoes, kids don't really have much of a foot that projects out from their body.
Right.
Their foot is kind of short and stubby. Yeah. So like I kind of tried to make him have a kid's foot as well. With coloring Tot, the one thing that I want to point out with every character in the Tot universe, big head, short neck, small neck. And that's sort of to replicate the body of a child. Children have this really big head in proportion to their body, which is kind of what makes them fall over all the time. But what I do is there's not really a lot of black shadows I'll do, except ones that project out from shorts or blouses. That's actually a bad example. I don't typically do the blouse. But a big head over a small neck, I usually put like a little black shadow here. I always do that with Tot.
Notice that with Tot.
Yeah, and I always do that with his pants. So just walk through of Tot's colors. Sky blue, to me, has always been this sort of head clearing color. Next to white, because I think white represents the color that has the most, what's the word? Potential. Light blue is the second most potential to me. It really replicates that idea of looking up into a sky on those magical days where there are no clouds, and you just kind of marvel at like how blue the atmosphere is. I wanted to make him have that feeling where he's just sort of, you look at him and you feel relaxed.
100%.
Yeah, you look at Tot and you're like, okay, this is a very relaxed, subdued, chill character, kind of like looking at a sky with no clouds.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the character that helps your kids fall to sleep at night if you read them the book.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make his vibe very chill.
Yeah.
And you're a very chill, relaxed guy, man. I remember, when I first met you at school, we were just kind of going through classes together.
Yeah.
But we were just sitting there, just kind of shooting the shit and just being like, this is.
You were always one of my favorite people.
Yeah.
We had a couple classes we would goof around, but I just ever since I saw your drawings, I was like, this kid is a genius.
Thanks, man. But no, I was definitely thinking about you a little bit when I was doing this too, because I was like, I want him to look kind of calm and chill, but I want kids to look at him and know, like, this guy could play sports. Like, this guy for sure, if you put a basketball or a soccer ball in front of him, like, he's all over it.
I feel that with the shoes, too.
Yeah,
I really like the shoes.
That's why I went hard on the shoes. I was just like, what would be the Tot universe equivalent of Nike or Adidas? And then I kind of made that. So I guess in his universe, it would be called Bolt instead of Nike.
Yeah.
And it all has lightning bolts. And if you notice, I'll show you in like the books, a lot of characters have the same brand shoe with the lightning bolt on it. It's just different colors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the rabbit from the first book, please remind me of her name.
Lois.
Lois. She has Tot shoes, but they're just in white.
Yeah, that's so cute. So that's my grandma.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, I wanted to make the shoes purple. And now I see it's actually kind of weird because Tot plus Pip equals purple, but I wasn't thinking about that when I did it.
Oh, I definitely thought that was on purple.
No, I just thought to myself, like, there's so much blue. I can't make his shoes blue. I want kids to look at his shoes and be like,
I want those.
Yeah. It's like, yo, those shoes are cool, man. Like,
well,
dude,
I felt.
Yeah, that's why I have the lightning bolt on. It's like, bro, those shoes are cool. And I used to like wear this dusty, crusty G-Shock in high school.
Classic G-Shock.
Yeah. The one that like everyone was into. And I just thought, like, I'm not going to draw him with the G-Shock, but the same sort of bulky watch on him looks cool because it gives him that sort of like cool, stylish accessory feeling, but it also pushes forward like, hey, this kid's a nerd. Like, he's,
Totally.
These sort of prayer beads that I got from Japan that have like a Buddhist origin. Tot also wears the same ones. I spent 5 hours drawing this, which is uncharacteristically long, but I wanted to draw the characters as clean as possible for the cover and really try and make them as proportionate and as accurate to the original design as I could. So when I drew this, I did have references in front of me. I had a screen of all the original characters, and then I just drew them as precisely as I could based off the original designs. And what you want to do with characters when you have them in a group shot is you want to draw them all in a way that shows their unique personality. None of them should be doing the same pose at all. Everyone should have their own pose, and their pose should be different. So you don't ever want to draw characters with a similar silhouette or shadow. And I can demonstrate that later. But I was proud when I drew this because I was like, you know what, man? Like, given the prompt that I had to do to design these characters, I made them look all different enough, but they all seem like they're from the same series. They all seem like they're from the same thing. And so I was like, this is a pretty tight crew. And I immediately like imagined sort of like a movie, like this would be a great movie poster.
100%. And also I love that Pits is the same exact, like,
yeah. Well, you said something to me, man, when we were on a call one time. You were like, I love consistency, or I love when things like have sort of uniformity. So I was like, every series in the Tot universe should have all the characters from that book in the back, the biggest one in the back doing this, or some version of like, yeah. And then the two main characters or one main character jumping, and you add a sort of transparent white outline around that main character to just make sure that they pop out from the pack. So as we get into the book, this house and this sort of aesthetic of the first page is very much inspired by Banjo and Kazooie, which was an old Nintendo 64 video game.
Love that game.
A lot of people our age probably played. It was very wooden, and it starred sort of a bear and a bird that lived in his backpack. And I always remember that the house that they lived in was, it was like a regular house. It had like a TV and a video game system, but it was almost like they were living inside of a tree house, or it was more, I guess, evident that the house was made out of wood. So I kind of wanted that back there, the sort of Banjo-Kazooie style house. And I drew this fish, and I was just like, you know what? Every single time we're by the river, this fish should be there. You really see the fish's face in Pip's book. And then we get to the classroom scene. We're sort of front lit, and I wanted the shadows to sort of perceive that these characters are closer to the camera, but also to kind of create this fear and unease. Like Todd's face is uncharacteristically shadowed here, and that's because he's experiencing the most negative emotion I think he experiences in the whole series. Yeah. In contrast, I wanted to make the other two characters very confident about their ability to understand good morning on the board.
Right.
Pip to the point where she's even raising her hand. But Todd is lost, and this sort of loss gives him this universal sad expression is like the eyebrow going up in this way. So this is sort of Todd's big revelation, where he realizes that he has the attention of an adult, but an adult that's like willing to help him, which is probably something that you experienced in your life.
100%.
An adult that's just like, hey, I want to help you do well, and is showing him special attention. And over here, I kind of wanted this idea of Todd sees himself as a superhero or someone who's capable of doing super things, which is a very important thing to teach children. Like you're not just capable of the everyday normal things like, counting to 10 or learning to tie your shoes, but you're capable of so much more. Like you're so much potential. And of course, Todd's jumping outside of a box, which is indicative of your country. I mean, your company. It's indicative of your company and your studio.
Yep.
And I wanted to do that. But I also wanted everything that surrounds Todd in this moment to be sort of like crayon illustrations, because that's sort of how I represent kids' imagination artistically.
This is one of my favorite pages in the book. What is your favorite drawing in the book?
In this book, I really like that one. Let me just check to see.
And then Haley, I want to know yours too.
Impossible to choose.
It's
To me, the creativity and the outside the box are my two faves.
It's this one right here. I really liked just kind of how moody the lighting is, and but it's sort of, to me, this picture is a little emotional because I think about all the times as a kid where I looked into the sky and I watched fireworks, and that was incredible. Like your whole heart swells up watching these fireworks, and you're like, wow, wow. And as an adult, you're kind of jaded, and you watch fireworks and you're like, oh, that's cool, or like another year has passed, or it's 4th of July, of course there's going to be fireworks. But as a kid, like you're enraptured by the simplest things. Like when you go to an aquarium and you see a giant fish, you're like, whoa, look at that giant fish. When you see a car fly fast down the street, you're like, wow, it's amazing. When you see explosions in the sky, it's the same thing. And this illustration brought me back to, I guess, how I used to view the world with a less jaded perspective, and sort of a natural wonderment that children seem to have. Yeah. And that's why I like this picture a lot. I also like this page because it's a bit of foreshadowing. I mean, Phoebe's looking up into the sky, and she has the glasses. So I almost like to think of the third book as sort of like a prequel.
Yep.
Because I start her off in the third book not in the pilot uniform.
Right.
When she becomes the pilot, she puts it on.
Interesting.
So at this point, she has already had that experience. The third book is actually a prequel, because she's dressed up like the pilot.
Oh, I love that.
And she's looking into the sky with her arms raised because, well, she knows what it is to fly at this point. I'm super excited. The top verse, as I've called it in my computer files, organizing everything. Whole idea of they call it wacky palm in the art world, which is wacky postmodern. If you remember Kids Pix, the computer software for kids, it kind of had this whole aesthetic, this art aesthetic of like swirling shapes and lightning bolts, and it's very polygonal and geometrical. To me, that was the era where I was the most inspired about the world. And so I tried to put those sort of aesthetic things above Tot in this moment. but also just the fact that it's all emanating from him. Like it's all emanating from him. And she's just kind of sitting back in this moment. Like even her body language is like, all right, now it's your turn. Like, show me what you got. I showed you how to use this. Now you do it. Even like her wings are out, like, all right, your turn. And he's just boom, like all of his ideas are coming out from his head, and he's becoming confident, which I think for any artistic or creative kid is something that's very important. You know, I'm very fortunate that I came from a background where my parents were very supportive of my ideas and my dreams and my sort of artistic endeavors. But I know a lot of people who not only didn't get that support, but they were shouted in the opposite direction. Like, oh, you shouldn't do this. Or, this is stupid. Or this is just something that kids do. And that's like the worst thing that you could do to a kid. The very worst is try to shout down their ideas or reduce their excitement about the world.
Yep.
So she is doing this thing where she is behind him, protective of him, but she's also just letting him be a kid. And that sort of magic that's coming out of his mind and that's coming out of the light bulbs is all of his ideas, his confidence, his imagination. And yeah, more of the superhero motif, right? Todd's wearing a light blue shirt, and it just so happens that Superman's outfit is also light blue.
Had to do it.
Yeah. So if he was going to draw a comparison to any one, it would be Superman, who also is the most iconic of any superhero.
100%.
So it just works well for this illustrative example. And it just, you could easily see it. You could see Todd in the superhero outfit. And I'll talk to you real quick about the text thing that I mentioned.
Yep.
So here on this page, we see Todd see himself as a superhero. It's very common for children, especially male children, to see themselves as Batman, Superman, Spider-Man. So in this page, we establish Todd sees himself as a superhero at this point. Now that we get to this page, the way that Todd is moving as all these other characters observe him, as he's going to tell his friends the stories that he has in his mind. If you notice, the pose that he's striking is very superhero. He has his chin up, his chest is all the way out. He's extending his body, which is showing confidence. His body language is showing like, hey, I'm taking up a lot of space. And in his mind, he's walking like a superhero would walk, just throwing like his fists in front of him. His eyes are shut, his chin is out. So in his mind, because his eyes are closed, he's thinking about how he perceives himself. And
I love that.
yeah,
too.
what he sees is essentially a superhero walking. He's no longer Todd walking. He's Superman walking.
Yeah.
And everyone around him recognizes that new confidence. And they're all looking at him like, oh, man, oh, I see Todd. What are you going to tell us today, Todd? Yo, what kind of story you got for us? And he's like, hey, man, watch me strut my super stuff. I'm about to show you guys my superpower.
Love that.
So that's the idea. And I hope that
does resonate.
I hope that every kid gets to feel that at some point in their life, whether they win like a game or whatever they do, that gives them that sort of moment where they're like, yeah, I did that. That's important to feel. This is the first page of the Phoebe book, and a lot of the color style sort of comes from Rebecca Sugar's work on Steven Universe. There's a lot of sunsets and sunrises in that show, and just try to get some of that color in there. Like you can even see like the water is like really light pink. The further away it is from the mountain, and the closer that the water is to the mountain, the darker it is. You know, it's got this big shadow and these blue glimmers of light and this pink glimmer of light. So just try to make it look as bright as possible so that when Phoebe's running, she really stands out. This page is pretty quick to work on. Whenever you have environmental elements that don't have faces or bodies, you can just kind of draw them any way you want. But because, you know, Phoebe is a specifically designed character, like her hair has to look the same in every single thing. Her ears have to be in the same spot. But like drawing a tree has less rules.
Right.
Just draw it however you want.
So how long did this one take you?
So right now we're 35 minutes in.
Oh, it says.
Yeah. Or 38 minutes in. If I had to guess right now, looking at the bar, maybe like an hour and some change this one took me. Again, because it's an environmental shop, it's a lot quicker to draw.
So how many times have you gone to this convention that you're going to? Is this
OtakuCon, this is my second OtakuCon.
okay?
This one I'm super excited because I got 2 books. I got Tot and then I got Stargirl, and then
Stargirl's amazing, by the way.
thank you, man. I appreciate it. It's a very, very personal story.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And it looks like that was an hour and 17 minutes. Just gonna make it in there. And I'll say we got kind of like a little truck here. A lot of times if I'm not paying attention, I'll just kind of like color it in like this because I'm so used to doing traditional art, and this feels like very satisfying to me. Like in my brain, I'm going, okay, I'm not missing like any white spots. But if you do this a lot in digital art, you'll never finish anything. So what you're supposed to do is, just make sure your outline is really clean, and then just
Tap tools?
Yeah, just let this do the rest. But when I'm talking and drawing at the same time, which like last night, when I have friends over and we're all drawing together, I'm usually just like doing this and they're like, oh, it's going to take forever. The important thing to remember is the sun is coming up in this shot, right? So the sun emits orange or yellow light. So you're going to make the bottom of the gradient orange and then the top darker. Because there's a darker part of the sky that the sun isn't in yet. So it's like dark up here and then bright up here. So when it comes to gradients, you just have to remember where your light source is coming from. Our light source is coming from the bottom and going up to the top. I'll just recreate the sunset. Get like a big airbrush tool, and then make the size like pretty big. Kind of go across like that. Now you have like your dark layer of like where the light source is absent. This middle layer is where the light source is about to creep in, and this bottom layer is as strong light source as you can make it without making it look ridiculous.
Nice.
So here it's kind of like, all right, it's layered. It just doesn't look natural.
Right.
If you want to like really dive into some more details, which I typically don't do with Tot, I try to keep it like cartoony.
Yep.
You could add like little highlights. So that's like sun rays, the sky, the darkness of night. And now it's kind of almost looks like a cake or like a candy. And then what's great about Photoshop and most digital illustration tools is you can go to this magic wand, you can hit Gaussian blur, and then just allow the computer to blur it together. So that's like a smooth gradient,
It's so funny. I have always called it Gaussian.
It probably is Gaussian.
No, it's probably Gaussian, dude. It's so funny.
We'll figure it out today. So yeah, I like the way that this looks.
One thing that obviously this that I'm obsessed with about your art is your ability to take simple things and make them look so perfect.
Yeah, that's what cartooning is. So any sort of cartooning book or resource will tell you that like you shouldn't spend a lot of time on the characters. You make them look as simple as possible. You make the backgrounds look more complex because there's something eye-catching about a very oversimplified and minimalistic character walking through a complex and realistic background. It draws your attention to it.
Does it mean a lot to you, the idea of someone redrawing your characters, like learning from you in that way?
I'd be humbled. I think that's really cool. I always hope that when a kid sees a character, they get excited. Like that's a big thing. Like my niece, she just got a copy of Tot.
I saw that.
And I hope that when I visit her again, and my buddy goes, hey, like this is Uncle Drew, like he drew this book, that she'll talk to me about Tot and, say things about that character.
Yeah.
So I always hope that like the characters I draw stick in the minds of whoever's reading it.
Yep.
But is it important for me for them to try and draw them? Only if they want to. My niece really loves to draw, so I'm sure she'll try her hand at drawing Tot. Yeah.
Do you teach her sometimes?
She's too young. I kind of just let her like play with the iPad.
Yeah.
But she's learning. She's getting there.